Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Oh, hey there.
Hey.
Justice Serve TV is on the air. Michael Bryant here. Hey, Linda Kenny Bodden.
Hi, I feel like I'm on the correct side tonight.
Yes, yeah, I did that right. I did that right.
Yeah, I'm so excited because I even got notice on my iPhone that we are live on the air. Now, I'm signed up also on my computer, but apparently YouTube does not send those notifications out to your computer, or if it does, it doesn't send them out to my computer. So I'll do a little patter here with you. It's been a busy day because I have a lot of chalk for later on, but I know there's a Dalmatian in the house.
Yeah, you know, every time he
Name
gets,
is Domino.
I try and give him a little food before kind of his normal dinner time is a little bit later, and I kind of, bribe him. But he has this habit. Every time he gets fed, he just wants to go play, and that's the "I want to play" bark. So
okay, I got one of those. Although mine's sleeping over there.
Yes,
mine's like I was giving him food too beforehand, but he goes to sleep, so I know I had the reverse.
Yeah, so this dog has an on and off switch. It's either crashed out or going crazy. So
yeah, he's adorable.
How was the weekend?
We posted our dogs on Justice Serve TV and on our website. So we posted them. Yours is in a shirt.
Oh yeah, the where in the world is justice T-shirt. Why is that? Because it's Merch Madness, right? Merch Madness beginning tomorrow, I guess officially, right?
Yeah, well tonight is I guess tomorrow officially. Yeah, my bracket went down when
well, that's a different Merch.
Favorite went down. That was March Madness.
It was boring. Yes. It was boring this year. March Madness was boring. You had four top seeds. Who cares?
Yeah, 1-1-1-1. That's it.
Only happened 3 times, and it's boring. You look for the upsets. You look for the Cinderella teams. Who cares about those top
Cinderella
seeds?
Teams are the exciting one. Yeah. So anyhow, it's Merch Madness, and we're working on the merch that you saw, To Be the Poodle. I think our Dalmatian, Domino, and our Poodle, To Be, are the most amazing models. Yeah. And why do we call it Merch Madness?
I don't know, because we're mad about it. I don't know, because we're finally getting around to it, and I thought it was a catchy phrase, so I just said Merch Madness. I don't know. What else you got?
Are we announcing something?
Oh, well, tomorrow, I think, is the grand opening, right? We'll be there, handing out something. We'll actually open up the doors, right? And
tomorrow we're going to open up the doors. We actually have a merchandise store. We've been actually threatening you. Don't let that get around. We'll get indicted for intimidating each other, being a witness or something in Massachusetts. Yes, we have a merchandise store. We're going to be opening up with a few interesting things. We're working on some more interesting things, and that has to do with To Be the Poodle. We're working on his bow tie. We're working on a shirt for dogs. Our Merch Madness, when you see it tomorrow,
and of course,
you're going to be blown away.
And Dizzy doing amazing work to get that up and running.
Also a friend of theirs who does not want to be known.
That's right.
Does not want to be named, right? And reason why we're doing it tomorrow, reason why the Merch Madness is opening tomorrow.
I forgot about that. I forgot we hit that 10K over the weekend. You know what happened? When we hit, which is great, and thank you all for making that possible, because I don't know what the hell we're doing. So when we got toward the 5,000 mark, I just happened to be, it was middle of the day or something.
like a month ago.
And I was looking at, on YouTube, they have a real-time counter, right? And we got to like 49.95. Like, this will be kind of fun. So I started watching it, and it was during the day, so people were still awake. And I actually videotaped it rolling over to 5,000. Yay! I thought it was exciting. So over the weekend, I was up. I was actually editing our Person of the Week, which is coming up a little bit later on today. And I saw that we were at 9,999. And so I started, I'll catch it. So I started rolling. 2 minutes, nothing, stop, start. 2 minutes, nothing, stop, start. 2 minutes. It went to 10. It went to 9,998. We lost somebody, so I gave up on that effort. And sometime overnight, it rolled over.
But the funny thing about it is, like, it was just a month ago, we were saying, okay, maybe we'll have a special show for 5,000, and then we just went right over and like Zoom, and because of all of you watching, and then we were so busy we couldn't have any special show.
I know. 5,000. I know. So, I know that Missy's working on something, and we appreciate that, because we just there's other stuff we've been kind of covering in addition to the real world. So we certainly want to recognize all the folks who have been nice enough to join us. Don't think we're not taking full gratitude, but we just haven't had time to do something. So tomorrow we're doing something.
Something.
That's all.
We're going to even be surprised. We're going to even be surprised at what it is. I understand for a lot of it, but of course, it's also going to involve covering cases such as Karen Reed, which we were so worried. We'll have an update later on the jury, but we were so worried that, my gosh, we could have opening statements this week. What are we going to do? Forget that.
We might as well fill in those blanks real quickly because they just, they broke about a couple hours ago, and they got nobody today. Nobody.
Yeah, it tells me that there were some issues, and that's what I want to talk about later on, because there's these motions being filed for the jury list by the defense, and there may have been some issues that they want to go back on. So that may be that, or those 10 that they have are all the stealth jurors in Canton, and they're gone. The rest of them, we got. I mean, more questions, whatever.
I'm amazed that they hit the wall. Because it looked like they got 2, then they got. A total of 7, and they got a total of 10, and then the last 2 days they've gotten 0.
Whoa,
that is so loud.
That was so loud. I was like breaking news.
I'm going to have to broken eardrums is what we got.
Not only that, my mic was muted. I was like, oh my gosh, we have breaking news.
Yeah, it does mute our microphone. So this I hold in my hot little hand here has not been filed yet. So pretend I'm not telling you about this. But this relates indirectly to the Karen Reed case. This is in the United States District Court, District of Massachusetts, in the case of DeRosier and Bryant versus et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Bryant, do I know him?
I don't know. There's a declaration that is going to be filed because we need a little something called a temporary restraining order. Or a preliminary injunction, of course, or in the alternative, injunction pending appeal. So
what's that about?
This has to do with the second of 3 cases that have been filed by Mark Randazzo on behalf of a number of folks, reporters, protesters. The first case, 4 protesters. Second case, 2 journalists.
The protesters against Judge Beverly Cannone, because it makes
very specifically, yes. But they wanted to do it at or near the courthouse in the buffer zone. So that was the first lawsuit. Second lawsuit was Tom CPU and myself, and that is a case against the Massachusetts State Police for being mean to us. They were so mean. It was
more than being mean. I was on the air with that, and I was like, hey, wait a second. Could you repeat that? We're going to cut that right now. We're going to put that clip on the air. There was 8 minutes of me being on the air with you. That was not being mean to you. That was violating your First Amendment rights, in my opinion. You can take it over since it's your case, but I was
what we have is so a declaration in which I say, I'm a journalist. I wish to report on the Karen Reed trial from the sidewalk in front of the Dedham Superior Court today and every day. I guess maybe not today. I am chilled in doing so because the direct order given to me by Massachusetts State Police on April 1, 2025, in their enforcement of the buffer zone bars my journalism. I declare independently of perjury, blah, blah, blah. So that is hot off the press, and that's to be filed in conjunction with a request for a temporary restraining order. There is already one filed for the protesters, which was the lawsuit filed about, I think, a day, because Mark Randazzo was super busy.
Right. You had the 4 people before. Or 2 days before. Maybe 2 days before, only because you filed a declaration in support of that lawsuit.
Yes, that is true.
Right.
That is true. And there's a lot of paperwork flying around. It happened so quickly because Mark Randazzo is good at what he does. So then this one came up.
We talked about it, by the way. If anyone wants a primer on this, the other day, I think it was Thursday, we actually spoke about, Michael showed the sheet from the federal court on the 4 plaintiffs who filed the initial lawsuit that he's talking about, and he filed the declaration you did after what happened to you in Massachusetts in support of their restraining order request.
Correct. Yeah, and those are the protesters, distinct from the second case, which were journalists, and then the third case, which is a direct result of the video, and I'll show that it's like 10 seconds. We can look at that again. Is the gentleman, Mr. Delgado, who dared to wear that little lapel-sized sticker that said "Justice for John O'Keefe, FKR," right? So that's the three totally separate lawsuits.
And that was ripped off him.
Yes, and his is more, if you look at it, it's more assault and battery, that kind of case. It's not as much a First Amendment type case, although obviously it is because he's wearing a sticker that he should be allowed to wear. So that's one part of it. But for the trooper to rip that thing off as he did,
Right.
that's an assault and battery.
You
That's
know what?
all there is to it.
Let's take this question because this is one that's right. Grandpa Munster's multi-track lab. Are you a journalist or self-described journalist? Self-described journalists are a dime a dozen, and they are journalists. Well, let me answer that for you.
Ooh.
Number one, we're reporters. We're journalists. We were on the air for 6-7 years, anchoring a law and crime. Number two, Michael Bryan has been on a number of TV shows where he's been a journalist. Number three, he has an Emmy and you don't, and you can ask that kind of question when you can bring your Emmy to the table, sit it down, and put it there. And then you can discuss it with him. All right, I'm finished.
Yeah, for those who don't know or care, it's been about 40 years that I've been reporting either on local level, national level, syndicated level. Yeah, I'm about as journalist as you could get. So now, having said that, I don't care if you have the credentials like I do or not. You have the right to report on matters of public interest. And in this day and age where, this platform and many others gives access to really anybody who wants to seriously do it. Yeah, sometimes I admit it's a little hard to sift through those who really are carrying out a journalistic endeavor or they're just kind of screwing around. I get that. I still think you can't, with a broad brush, say unless you're traditional,
legacy media,
that you don't qualify. Well, that's just stupid. So
and it's not even that. They said to you, I've seen you walk by 5 times. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
You walked by here 5 times. They were watching you 5 times because you were walking back, reporting on people. You were talking to people.
Right.
And
I had different people the time I went by. I think I went by once by myself. But that's so what? I mean, so what?
So
what? I've been so surprised at people who, not unlike the Munster person there, they're just kind of ignorant about the First Amendment, and they think that the court can just close down public sidewalks just because they want to. They can't. And the order in place here doesn't close down the sidewalk. It creates a buffer zone for those that are protesting, supporting either side in the Karen Reed case. Prosecution, although I never see anybody there for the prosecution, or the Karen Reed supporters. That walking in front of the courthouse has nothing to do with any of that.
Right, nothing.
I'm just trying to get my steps in.
And as a matter of fact, the Dedham police order that I have in my hot little hands over here basically says that the sidewalks are not closed. The sidewalks are public sidewalks still to be able to be used. And if they're going to close them, they will let you know. Like here, if the president of the United States comes through and he's going to go to Trump Tower, they may close the sidewalk as about half an hour before his car and his entourage goes past. They tell you that we could close the sidewalks at any time in today or tomorrow because he may be here. But otherwise, it's a public sidewalk. I could walk past Trump Tower 1,000 times every day.
Unless there's a public safety issue or some other specific issue, you can't just through prior restraint stop people from saying things, doing things, walking by things. It has to be so narrowly tailored. Well, what's the order doesn't even address it. Why? Because the order is more appropriate. I don't like it, but it's more appropriate. I would still fight it, but it's more appropriate than one that would say nobody can walk back and forth on the sidewalk in front of the courthouse for 9 hours a day. Right. That on its face is a joke, but that's how the troopers are interpreting and enforcing it, and that's the biggest problem.
All right, so that's big news. Do it to us again. Give us the news again for those that may have come into the show late. This is a brand new document that's about to be filed. In your case, Brian versus.
I'll give it. Let's give me. I got a couple of names. There are some does. Yeah. Jeffrey Noble, in his official capacity as superintendent of the Massachusetts State Police. Sergeant Michael Hardman, who's been called many things less nice in his official capacity, and then John Doe's 1 and 2. There were 4 there that moment. Let's just for fun, let's look at that. It's like 30 seconds, right?
Let's look at it. No, absolutely.
Let me pull it up and zoom ahead. One of the things that has gotten less attention in part because it wasn't captured on video, unfortunately, was that moment I first started telling you what I had just heard, right?
Interesting. I don't know if you heard that little discussion as I walked past those cops. But they were obviously irritated about something, somebody, some process. They said, we got a van here. We'll make some fucking arrests. We have to.
What did they say? Say it again. Say it again. Say it.
They said they were gathered right there in front of the jury collection point, that building. And they said, look, we got the van here. We'll make some fucking arrests if we need to.
Oh, wow. Let's get Dizzy. Let's get Oasis Cat to cut this clip of Michael, what he just heard. Maybe as we're going past the cops and hear it, maybe we can hear them. I'm sorry, I was talking.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. I don't know if you would have been able to pick that up or not, but
But that's okay. Yeah, but that's okay. Let's say you go past the cops and up to this point where Michael tells us what they said. So they got the van here. They're going to make some fucking arrests. Well, that's really a good way to start the day. Jeez, come on, guys. You're assuming that you want to make arrests. This is why people are upset.
They were saying, we'll give them one warning and that's it.
So that hasn't gotten a lot of press because I don't think it's recorded, unfortunately. But those threats to me are they give you a sense of why they acted like they did, just a few minutes later.
By the way, this whole clip is actually in the complaint that's filed. The complaint actually uses this whole links to it on our Justice Served TV YouTube page if you want to go back and see it.
So there's I've gone back down to the buffer zone and I've returned out walking toward the courthouse with Scott, of course, and he's got as you can see,
Scott McGinnis.
Scott McGinnis has a bag over his sign because he's trying to comply with the order. So he has a sign covered with a bag, but then he's got a big old U.S. flag as well, which apparently seems to be okay. Okay, then we get to the corner, and I start having a conversation with this guy, not that guy. Where is he? This guy, right? And he's the guy with the sticker. And I think there it is. There's the sticker. Okay, and he's going on and on. He's obviously a local guy. He's got all kinds of issues with what's been happening there in Canton. He has free Karen Reed sticker. Okay, so then we head across the street.
Never not windy down. I know. It's pretty interesting. So this is the Registry of Deeds building across it here. Again, this is where most of the jurors queue up, we think.
Okay, now here he just said, you guys got to keep walking back and forth. The subtitling is a little behind. And Scott just says, I'm going to go to the other side of the line, going to go over there and get a coffee.
All right, we're going to check out what the other line is.
That's got to go.
That's got to go. That's what caught my attention, and I immediately pivoted to the right to see what's got to go. And there you see the sticker. Mr. Delgado's got his hand up. He's offering zero resistance. And between the time of that's got to go and this, it's, I don't know, 4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. Never do you hear anything suggesting, why don't you just, go back out of the zone, take that off if you're going to come through, or even once you take that off yourself. Nope, nothing. It's just outrageous. And then I don't want to see you walking by here again. It's the 5th time. I don't want to see you walking by here again. It's the 5th time. Well,
that's to you. That's to you.
That's to me. How about the 6th time? How about what happens if it's a 7th time, perhaps? How about that? What do we see? What are we going to do then?
And
so anyway,
what's important is we just happened to be on the air. You were there, and it just happened that 8 minutes, that 8-minute segment that we had, is something that is supported now. These 2 lawsuits. And also actually help support the 3rd lawsuit against the people that I'm going to call them protesters that filed the first, but they were peaceful, that filed the first lawsuit. Had you, the press, not been there, and had we, Justice Served TV, acting as the press, not been covering it, it would have been poo-pooed. It would have been poo-pooed. It would never have gotten the kind of deference that has now gotten that supports what happened. People said, "Oh, you have no proof of that," but here it is. Here's the proof.
Yeah, and I'm amazed at people who just poo-poo that and like, so what? What's the big deal? You don't get it. You don't get the big picture here. This is a fight for things that you say that I think are ridiculous. I think you have every right to say, not you. You meaning somebody else out there. Yeah, you have every right to say the dumbest things on the planet. There are certain things you can't say. It's a very finite list, but most of the things we hear that are just plain dumb, you have the right to say dumb stuff. And that's what this fight is about. And so don't get all caught up in the fact nobody was shot in the head or put in a chokehold or even arrested. So
And have you looked at the people they call protesters? I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily say they call them protesters. I mean, you and I look back, and I was looking back because we have a place near where Woodstock, the first Woodstock occurred, a small country cabin there. And you remember all the pictures you see of all these kids out there back then, and they were protesting the Vietnam War. That's what Woodstock was really started to be about. And then also we had situations. There's a historical Kent State University where students were shot by the police and killed. I mean, this is what, in my mind, is protesting. You look at these people. It's like there's a woman for instance, in Narrowsburg, New York, who's protesting the taking down of a bridge. She's like 89 years old. She's on a cane. I mean, this is what it reminds me of. But you have a right to protest at whatever age you are. But they're not out there destroying anything.
no, this is not a mostly peaceful organization. This is a completely peaceful. I have not seen one Molotov cocktail in this whole operation,
Which is good.
of course. And
Right.
and I'll hear certain outlets or some of the drive-bys will talk about the unruly nature of this Free Karen Reed movement, and I mean they just don't know what they're talking about. And again, as I say, and I told this that Fox did a report on this lawsuit last week, and I said, look, I'm not.
Fox News by Michael Ruiz, one of their great reporters.
That's right. He did a fine job. And we're not in the Free Karen Reed movement. That's not what this is about. This is us objectively looking at a case that happens to be the Karen Reed case, finding problems with it, and voicing those concerns. So, that's very different than protesting as a Free Karen Reed supporter. We fully understand what they're doing, but we're more objective than that. And this is just a case we found has
a lot of problems. And we're willing to give people the ability, the chance to come talk.
Of course.
To treat people like
Come on.
decent people. I tell you what, you know what I get? I get the most comments I've ever gotten on my social media pages are from these bots and trolls who are on the anti-Free Karen Reed. They start attacking you. They attack what you look like. They attack what you say. And they're usually anonymous. There's a few that are not anonymous, but they're usually anonymous. And they're usually trying to get attention because you have maybe 5,000 followers and they have like 10. But you can tell when they're bots because they don't have a name. And that's where, if you want to talk about attempted intimidation to back down of covering a case, that's where you see it. I really haven't seen anything on the people that are walking around with the signs with the American flag, and they're just trying to express their opinion that this case has problems, and that they believe that the whole Canton Police Department has problems. Which, is if you're going to look at it from when you come in and you're just looking at it from our perspective.
Yeah, they've just seen too many cases like Karen Reed with very similar problems, and to them it is much bigger than the Karen Reed case.
Right. The Sandra Birchmore case, which we're going to talk about when we get to the Canton report. I mean, talk about a washover. I mean,
so you want to do that? You want to get into the Clown Hall meeting, the Canton Town Hall
whatever,
meeting?
or whatever you want. You had an order of today.
I can't remember what it was though. I can't remember. Let's just up
the jurors.
We updated the Karen Reed on the jurors.
Yeah,
so
why don't we do that?
There's 0 new jurors. 0. Okay,
Right.
So we still have 10, 5 men, 5 women. They went through 45 today, and the vast majority had issues. Like, they've formed an opinion. Obviously, most people knew of the case, but they'd formed an opinion, and then they started queuing up to basically beg their way out of the case. I did see, and this was reported by Ted Daniel, all credit to where it should go. He said that as Karen Reed was leaving the courthouse, that she said the defense has used up 10 of their 16 peremptories. So
how about the state? How many have they used?
She didn't share that, or at least not through Ted. So, and I'm sure Mr. Brennan wasn't throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So.
Now, the interesting thing about it, though, is there's been in the past couple of days. First of all, it was reported on Friday that at the end of the day, there appeared to be rancor at the bench with Mr. Yannetti, Mr. Jackson, two defense attorneys for Karen Reed and the judge. And they have been asking for, and they filed another motion to get the juror list of who's going to be called up next. There was a real issue, I believe, early on as to how was it that, how is this juror being called up first, so that juror to be interviewed? What was the order? Why was there an order? So they want the list of the jurors, not just the ones that are in the veneer, but how it is that they're being assigned to being called up. And you may find that there's some problems that they may have objected to, and that's maybe why you had 10 beginning, that somehow got in. And also, with those 10, I mean, I'm of the opinion that those 10 are self-jurors. Okay.
Yeah,
there's no way you got, they want to be there. There's no way you got 10, unless you're then allowing more questioning to go on. And that's what's happening. The defense wants more questioning because they're smelling a rat, I think to me.
And there's so many signs that things are askew. Let's just start with the witness list. I mean, we've heard Judge C read out this list of names now. What, 4 days in a row? Is this our 5th day today?
Begins with Aiden Carney.
And they're done alphabetically by first name.
I've never seen that.
Wait, even worse, when there are a couple of troopers and she still calls Proctor a trooper. That's okay, because I understand that if you're trying to know whether somebody knows that name, maybe that helps you connect. But it's under T for trooper. Not first name, not last name, T for trooper. Doctors under D for doctor. I mean, it's insanity. I mean, you wouldn't have a 3rd grader put it together like that.
I have never ever seen a list done by first name alphabetical. I mean, yes, the judges don't want to say what they used to do like in the old times. And the defense may call this, and the prosecution may call this. They combine it so you don't know who's on which side of the witness list, where they're testifying. But when I first heard that it was Aiden Gordon, I was like, what? What? They go by first names?
They have nobody A through I.
Yeah.
J.
So I just think that's the defense is smelling some kind of rat. They're making some kind of objection. It's getting people mad, but it's also showing that maybe the selection of the first 10 jurors wasn't as appropriate as it should be. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about that. And in fact, by the way, interestingly enough, today, there was a document filed in the United States Supreme Court in SCOTUS by the Karen Reed defense team. And it was, you're really good on this. They want a what, Michael Bryant? This is the test.
Stop the action. Stop. Cut. They want to stay the proceedings while the Supreme Court makes a decision.
Right. I don't know if we have a copy of that or not, but it's application for stay of state court proceedings pending disposition of petition for a writ of certiorari. So I
mean, that's not unusual, but in this case, it makes perfect sense if they are going to look at it. You don't want the trial going forward. You don't want the jury sworn is what you don't want.
But that's right.
So we'll see. I think there's a very little chance of a stay, and even maybe less chance of them taking the case certiorari. It's just, we went through the numbers last time. It is so highly unlikely. The court really has to. I just feel like they got better things to do, and the default, it seems, on all of these appellate levels is, she's got a second trial. Shut up. She's got another trial.
Right. Oh, it's always great to have to go through a second trial for murder. Oh, so that's a great remedy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Back to the question that there may be some concern about the jury members, and well, we know they're all numbered, right? And when they have issues, they'll raise their hand, and we hear them called out, 423, 450, or whatever they are. Makes sense to me that if they are in a group that needs to be individually voir dired, that they go up in the order of their number. Does that make sense to you?
That's usually, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that make sense? For organization, it's easier than hopscotching around. Maybe they do it whoever's physically closer to the bench. I don't know, but it would seem to me
I don't remember.
The norm would be lowest number, you go up, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you keep going.
We just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, we don't know what's happening. So they want a list of the jurors that are coming up in the order they're coming up. That's all. So you don't get that apparently unless you file the motion. But something tells me that there's something more than that, because these motions weren't being filed until Thursday of last week. Okay, so that's
well. Here's another thought. I'll tell you what I think of this. Remember, we were talking about with Richard Gabriel, your buddy, your jury selection guy.
Best jury consultant in the world, whether you like what he's had to say or not. He did pick up. Michelle
Ward, they're just the best. And so I had asked, in fact, I asked Michelle this before, and I asked it again of Richard. I said, what are you guys using? We had the old Post-its and all that. And he said, oh, yeah, we still do that. But they have the ability to search, like boom, check somebody out. Well, if they have that list even an hour earlier, they've got a better shot at doing that. Check their social media, see if they've been out there on one side or the other.
Right.
So that may be part of it too. Gives them a little leg up in terms of research.
Although every jury should be asked what their social media, I believe in this day and age,
asking them and looking is two different things.
Right, because then you got to read everything, and you go on our social media. Everyone now has social media for such a long time. How many years do you go back?
I don't know. Do you think it would be hard if somebody had a true bias? You wouldn't have to look very far, I don't think, to find it. And if you don't, then maybe it's not all that strong a bias.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to take a chance on a case if I'm defending somebody and then my client is charged with murder. I mean, I'd want to look at everything that they have.
Of course, I get it. And it sounds to me like because they've bogarted these jury prospective member lists, I guess right up to the moment they bring the voir dire in, the panel in, the veneer, right? Sounds like they get nothing until right up to that point. Right. Then they're really handicapped. Right. That's tough.
Yeah, and they're hovering over even the jury questionnaires after they fill them out. They have to hover over and all of them kind of read them together. And then, of course, that does away with how you're rating them. Now, Karen Trog questioned, should the defense file a motion to dismiss for not being able to question the jurors? They filed a motion to question the jurors, and the judge said no. And it's not a Massachusetts thing.
That's probably not going to be a winner on appeal either, no matter what happens. That's more a function, administrative. You'd have to prove some sort of. But
it's really hard, Michael. I mean, in all the cases I've had, we've had the questionnaires in advance, so that way you could rate them with your jury consultant, rate them based on what you think of the values are. Just to sit there, okay, just like you and I go on the air and we get, we're getting something. Oh, let's read it. Yes. What do you think?
There's a lot happening. This is where I admit to my Nazi question that I screwed up on a questionnaire. I mean, we were getting them as the people were filling in, and I didn't see that somebody put their Nazi on their questionnaire. So until we got to the point where it was the individual Q&A, and then it was like, oh yeah, we'd like to thank and excuse number 52. So there's a lot happening very quickly.
Yeah. Alert one system, is it truth that Commonwealth is trying to do criminal background checks on the potential jurors? Yeah, they filed a motion to do that. Yeah. So that's another thing defense can't do. And also, what happens is, I don't care. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I was a prosecutor, and I know that people would something would come up, and all of a sudden the whole office would be like, well, send down. Do you know this person? Send down on, because you're dealing with 1,000 people, right?
Yes.
Who can at least investigators, PDs, secretaries who can say, oh yeah, I know this person, I know that, and that's information that the defense doesn't have. And quite frankly, if there's some information in there that they have that the defense doesn't have, I'm of the opinion it should be turned over.
Well, think about this. Think about being in the Canton PD, the prosecution for the county, for the Commonwealth, and for the state. Those guys have local knowledge. It's home field advantage for them. So with all of the incestuous relationships we've heard about, who knows whom is the third cousin of so-and-so, and there's a very good chance their database of info about this jury pool is so much better than the defense, who has Yannetti as the only local dude. Right.
No matter what you have. So anyhow, before we move to our next topic here, I just want to let you know you're all here watching. We did our little pattern to begin, so you get here, you got your notification. Please hit that like button. Our next goal, even though we're going to have our show tomorrow, celebrating all of you, not us, celebrating all of you for hitting over 10,000. We want to get to the next milestone of 20,000 and 30,000 and 40,000. We're not stopping here. We're trying to grab all of you because we don't think the legacy media does a good job on this type of case or any type of case anymore. They don't have the real estate on TV, okay? And most of you get your news from X or YouTube. YouTube is the biggest search engine in the world, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, everything else has become, and I was part of this with everywhere I worked before, it's a headline service. You get a headline, you get a couple of paragraphs, and then, hey, moving on, it's time for the weather or whatever.
Right. And that's it. And then people read the headlines. But we try to do something a little bit more in-depth regard with that. All right. So you want to go next?
Yeah. So let's take a look at the Canton Clown, the Canton Clown Hall, I call it.
Canton Town Hall. Say
yeah,
that 3 times.
Canton
Canton Town
Town Hall.
Hall. Canton Town
And,
Hall.
and even though I thought we would do a little true crime roulette where I just have you say stop and we do it,
Yeah.
it's 3 hours, 15 minutes. And so that means the timeline for the video is very compressed. So
Right.
it's very hard to pick. So I picked a few nuggets.
Okay.
Okay. So to set this up, here's where we are. We're in the Canton Town Hall. They
And this is
all-
after, now this is to set up, this is after the report, the audit has been released, right?
This is just for the audit. This is
It's
not their
just
normal
for the
meeting.
audit, right, right.
This isn't. We've shown some of the selectmen hearings before, which are also
Right.
weird. But this is just for that
Put it out.
purpose. And they brought in the two folks from the committee. They have the head of the committee. Then they have this woman, and I'm gonna get to the name of her because she is a peach. This woman. She is the moderator. She's an official moderator. That's a job. She's an
Oh, wow.
attorney. Her name is Carmen Reese, and you'll get to know her a little bit as we go through some of these key moments. And the idea is people get to come in and say, hey, here's what I like, here's what I didn't like about the audit, and what about this, and what about that. First of all, not all that well attended. Big auditorium, but I think they had almost as
Did
many
they have Zoom? Was it on Zoom though also?
Yeah, it was whatever they use, whatever service they're
Whatever
using.
service they use,
Yeah.
right.
And so it is, some of it's outrageous, some of it's laughable, some of it's an embarrassment. So here it is. It happened on Saturday night, which is of course where you want to be on a Saturday night. Is it?
And the audit's by 5SI, 5 Stones Intelligence.
So I'm going to just zoom here. If you haven't
Wait,
seen
wait,
the
can
report,
we go back one second? Go back. Go, just go. Can you go back? No, you can't zoom. An independent audit, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this is going to become important about its independence. And when we had it last week, we thought, oh, some of the thing was pretty helpful. We're going to have the in limine motions. But now I think we're having in limine motions by Hank Brennan. But, you know.
Okay. So
The section behind the last row of seats.
this is the fire marshal telling us, look at that place. It's packed with empty chairs.
Media. So
I think they had
everybody else
as
is
many
just
microphones. They had
have
3
seat.
microphones, almost one
And
per person there.
finally, at the
And they had it broken down, I
the
thought,
conclusion of-
interestingly, to residents and non-residents, and they were favoring residents from Canton, which was interesting. Okay, here's my friend. You'll see more of her later.
First, the report took 4 months to complete and weighs in at 200 pages. We're here
206.
today to hear directly from Five Stones Intelligence about the findings and recommendations of the audit, and to provide citizens an opportunity to ask questions about those findings and recommendations and the methodology of the audit. And that's our complete agenda for today.
And I'm already falling asleep. That's Carmen Reese, okay? And so she's setting it up. The two guys there from the investigative unit, the audit unit, Matt Germansky and Brian, because every other person in that part of the world is named Brian. Brian McKnight. They will be the two that are answering questions. Now, I told you it's 3 hours, 14 minutes. That was the total, right?
Right.
The first hour and 48 minutes is those two guys beating their own chests about what a wonderful job they did, how they noted anything they thought was inappropriate, but overall, hey, not too bad.
And
The
the names are
first
Matt
hour, 48
Germansky,
minutes.
Matt Germansky and Brian what?
Brian McKnight.
Brian McKnight. By the way, Joanna Goddess, thank you, Joanna. She's always here supporting us. Remember for 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And Michael, love you. She loves our show, loves your faces. Thank you very much. And thank you, Joanna, for keeping coming back and supporting us publicly for every single body there.
Let me. I am going to let you play true crime roulette here because
Okay.
this guy he goes on and on. So we're just going to hit a couple of moments in this first
Okay.
hour and a half. So go ahead. I'm going to start. Hold on. Let me find my little thingy. There we go. Here we go. Ready? Okay. So here we are.
All right. Why don't we stop?
Okay.
I don't know what it stopped at.
We'll find out.
I'll tell you, in my previous life,
Oh,
when I was part of the
Listen to this.
process for DEA,
the volume's a little low. I don't know if
sat
we can
with a
boost that or
philosophy
not.
That I've known for decades, and that I actually, my wording to them was, I love you, and I'll do everything I can do to help you, but I also am going to suspend you right now for 12 days because you committed these violations. you broke these policies. That is integrity. Your department is perfectly capable of doing these investigations on their own. And we'll outline briefly the process that we recommended in the report if it's not clear.
Okay, so here's what's happening. This is the part of the report that dealt with what he called integrity and the lack of then any sort of conspiracy or malfeasance. And he's using this context of things that have happened that they noted, like a cop losing his badge and his gun. Remember who did that? Remember who that was? That was Kevin. Kevin, I get him all confused. Kevin Albert. His gun and his badge. He lost it one night after getting hammered. I think he was out with Proctor. I may be a little off on that, but he's basically saying those kinds of they happen. Those things happen, And so his job when he was in a role where he dealt with internal affairs was to make sure that people knew how serious it was, that they were suspended, and he loves them. He's going to do the best he can to help them. But I got to discipline you. We'll learn later on that apparently a lot of things that happen within the police department that might concern us don't concern them too much. Okay, so let's do one more true crime roulette before I get to some of the citizens Q&A.
I'm not even gonna look. I'm just gonna be out here hanging out. La 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 la. Oh, just keep going. I'm not ready to stop yet.
We're running out of time.
Okay,
right.
Stop.
Okay, and again, this is Brian McKnight. I'm sorry, no, this is Matt Germansky. Brian McKnight's the thinner guy.
Investigation fully, hand in hand with the Mass State Police, but in an attempt to appease the public and give this hey, nothing improper's happened here, we're going to step back. Significant communication gaps occurred, and those gaps led to some things and some information not being properly exchanged as it related to that a particular crime scene. So I can't make the recommendation strong enough that the CPD should not be recusing itself from any of these investigations at all.
Excuse me? What?
Yes, what he's saying, they have this big sequence here on conflicts of interest, but the bottom line response from the audit team is they did nothing improper and they should not have recused themselves for any sort of conflict, real or imagined.
Wait a second. This is the most. Somehow I missed that when we were looking. We got this really quickly, and we saw the 4 recommendations for John O'Keefe. We said, yeah, that's true. It's pretty good. Okay. I missed that there's no recusal. Of course, police departments recuse themselves. The whole prosecutor's office recuses themselves.
Or just an officer.
Agencies.
Just an officer, somebody that knows another officer who knows an officer who might be involved in the crime. There, you can see here it says the audit team focused on found no instances of cases being referred to the Attorney General or state police due to conflict of interest. Well, yeah, because they didn't do any. They didn't refer any.
Because they didn't refer any because they proceeded to engage.
That's why they didn't find any. Right. The Sandra Birchmore and John O'Keefe investigations were controlled by the state police and the Massachusetts law. Here was another very interesting thing that he mentioned. He said only a couple of communities in Massachusetts do their own internal investigations when there's a murder. Okay. If there is a murder, it is immediately turned over to Massachusetts State Police in Canton. And that's what happened here. Remember, they called them to the scene. But there's no real formal handoff. And so he uses that fact, that procedural fact, to let the Canton Police off the hook. It's like, hey, they really have to just turn this over to the Massachusetts State Police. We aren't looking at what they did. We're here only to look at what Canton did, because that's what we were given. We were given 85 pages of here's the scope of work we need for you. 85 pages.
Before you do that, one of our moderators, our Aces Cat, said, "Sir, a leaf blower is not integrity. Also, it wasn't Gucci." Okay, that refers to I pulled a leaf blower out last week, but they felt that the use of the leaf blower was very inventive.
You want to hear? You want to hear leaf blower? You want to hear that? Hold on, I got that.
Yeah, I want to hear that. I do want to hear that.
And this was in their prefatory.
And I want to hear about the next question too that I'm going to put up. But okay. I want to hear about
this is kind of toward the end of his spiel, and he gets into the leaf blower.
Communication until these radio issues
And they had some radio issues he mentioned as
we
well.
addressed. So a lot of people need to see this. We have received a lot of attention for our report, saying that the use of the leaf blower was a pretty good idea, and I stand by that.
They said it was a pretty good idea.
It's easy to sit in your couch 2 years later and go, what in the hell were they doing using a leaf blower? But if you saw in the report, the National Weather Service, January 29th, 2022, was the 7th worst storm you've experienced in the state of Massachusetts. That's saying something. The 7th worst storm in South Carolina is not a big deal.
Okay, at what point does the leaf blower rule kick in? When it's the 7th worst storm and
Most
and
ridiculous
worse?
thing, if they're blowing away snow with a leaf blower, you call in for a tent, you take a tarp, you collect everything that's on that snow right there, you put it on there, you can roll it up and you bring it to the station. You're blowing away evidence. It may be like taking a body into a medical examiner's office and go with the leaf blower. Let me take my hair dryer, which I use every day, before I look for trace evidence. I'm going crazy here. I'm incensed.
They could have put up one of those little 10 by 10 tents.
Right.
If nothing else, it keeps more snow from falling on the crime scene.
And then you you take the snow that's already there and you put it in a tarp and you save it in case there's any evidence. And when I was prepping for this, I went back through some of the Hernandez stuff on the questioning and about how easy it was. The reporters were saying I demonstrated how easy it was that trace evidence can't be seen. Trace evidence may have been blown away. You don't know. You don't know what you blew away because you're never going to find it again. And for them to justify the use of a leaf blower as a law enforcement tool, after I went back and read it, I was like, okay, I'm done here.
Okay, it's going to come back to haunt us. Let me see if he has any more to say about it here.
Massachusetts, it is a big deal. When I heard of the leaf blower, I thought it was ridiculous. And on my way up here, I looked at Brian. I said, who in the hell would use a leaf blower? So I was in the same position some of you may or may not be in, but I didn't understand it.
And now you
until
do?
I saw it. So I think if you watch the use of this leaf blower, there's officers standing all around him.
And they're walking. Look at
So there's
they're
officers all
walking.
around
They're
him.
walking through the
And as
crime
you can
scene.
see,
If they say
there's
it's a
not
crime
snow
scene.
blowing everywhere. It's not like snow's dramatically leaving the area and evidence is blowing around. But you
Yes,
can
it
also
is.
see on
The
the
snow
ground
that's blowing.
Yes.
saying
Yeah, because you can't see it.
I can
doofus.
see it. I just saw right there.
the glass is starting to be revealed. Again, there's officers here,
Look at this.
and there's officers here, and those officers are looking to make sure anything that blows away, like that leaf, they catch.
Aha!
But as you can
Aha.
see, the use of this
Did they
leaf
catch it?
blower
I didn't see
And
it.
what if it's
systematically
trace evidence
is
and you
revealing
don't
stuff.
see
That's
it?
what I mean.
You
That
didn't
there,
catch it.
it's what you don't
was
see
slow,
that is
it was
far more
methodical,
important.
And while it was not
I'm
something that
beyond
they, teach
I mean,
in
And they
special
remember
education,
they got that from the guy across the street. It's not
and
like they
I went
come with
through
leaf blowers.
they use these CALIA standards I talked about, the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. I went through that. In no place in that like thousands of pages of standards that they use for accreditation does it mention using a leaf blower for crime scene collection. Okay, and no place.
I'm
And by the
shocked.
way,
Obviously, that is way behind the curve of modern
now
technology.
was this addressed? Because if there is roulette here, Eliza J has a great question. The guy that conducted the audit, and I don't know which one of the two, said at the conference that the Sallyport camera wasn't changed. And I've seen this, by the way, on X today. If
Mhm.
so, the Commonwealth lied. Can the defense use this? Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we'll get to. It's toward the end, I think, where that is confirmed. Not just the number of cameras, but when you hear they had 28 cameras, you're saying, what the?
Well, that's why
28
I think it's a great question to get to, and I didn't want to play roulette. I didn't want.
What
to
have we
play
heard about?
Yeah.
5? We heard about 5 cameras, maybe 6 that they've
Right.
itemized, and now
That's
they're
right.
28. Okay, so let's go into
28. There are
let's-
28 cameras.
28 cameras.
We've
Let's
never
go
heard
into
about
the
that before.
questions now. Let me see if I get the first one here. Okay, so this is, need another little bit of my friend.
Canton Clown Show is what you called it, right? Canton
I
Clown
no, I
Show?
call it the Canton Clown Hall meeting. See?
Canton Clown Hall
meeting. I thought we were going to get some more of Carmen Reese, but they had to take a break after every momentous occasion. But this is again an hour and 45 minutes of them just bloviating about what a great job they did. That was no Q&A. So that means there was barely an hour and 20 minutes for Q&A. So they're still taking their break. Hold on, let me zoom ahead here. Although taking the break was one of the most salient parts.
I never
of their
heard about 28
presentation.
cameras before. And,
Yeah.
and by the way, we have. I mean, what incensed everybody, I think, what everyone then blew away this report, no pun intended, is because when he got to the Sandra Birchmore section, it was 3 pages of saying, "Oh, nothing wrong except the medical examiner now said it's a suicide, so you probably should have gone back and looked at it."
Yeah, nothing
Please,
to see here. Speaking of that just happens to be, as I recall from my shaky notes, first question. Oh, there's Carmen. Let's see what she has to say. What a job. See, they have that see that 3-color traffic light thing right below her microphone?
Like in federal court.
It's a 2-minute, you have 2 minutes.
Let me
2
take
minutes.
the starred question off. I'll put it back on, Eliza.
You have 2 minutes, and the light will go from the green to yellow at 1 minute. First you said 30 seconds, then you changed it to a minute. I mean, that's barely anything. And the answer sometimes took longer than the question, and she was kind of fudging with the numbers in terms of, you're done, your time is done.
So I'll remind everyone that we have 3 microphones, 1 in each of the aisles here for Canton residents, and 1 for anybody over here on my.
Carmen is not just a moderator, she's an attorney.
And once again, when I recognize you at a number microphone, you can begin with your question, and I will have the lights here going. And
like federal court.
They turn yellow at 1 minute as opposed to 30 seconds, so we'll see how this works.
Yeah.
Microphone number 2, please, and your name and your town, please.
Hi, I'm Ashley Bell. I live in Canton. So in the beginning of the report, I think it was under policies, under recommendation 6, I noticed that the audit states that a detective in the Sandra Birchmore case had written that it was suicide in his notes, but you guys had said that she had been killed by strangulation. I just wondered what made you decide to say that, since the Massachusetts medical examiner hasn't officially changed the cause of death in her autopsy report. So I just wanted to see where you guys were. Also, one more question. Would you have wanted this audit to happen if this exact situation was happening in your town? Would you have voted yes for the audit?
Let me answer the first question first. When we were hired to review policy and procedure in relation to crime scene responses from the Canton Police Department. The Sandra Birchmore case was one of the cases that we reviewed police reports on. Numerous police reports that we reviewed, probably 7. Several detectives that responded on February 6th in the second call, and I think there were at least 5 police reports written on February 4th when the responding officers found her. We delineated in the report that one of the detectives inadvertently wrote suicide.
Wait, inadvertently?
Purposely write that when the
Oh,
ME
come on.
report had not come back yet, even though the ME's report came back with that finding. I spoke to the detectives. The first ME report came back as the Commonwealth came back that it was a suicide. But he wrote the report prior to that. We had discussions with the detective lieutenant, who was a sergeant at the time, and
You got a promotion?
it was written,
After screwing it up?
purposely. And to your point on the note on why we noted that the Stone police officer, Matthew Farrell, was later indicted for this strangulation.
Yeah, so all's
That was
good.
from the indictment from the federal government, from the United States Attorney's Office. That's why that was written in there.
All right, you got to copy that.
I'm not so sure.
Inadvertently, wait. He's covering it. He's covering up, in my opinion, this because he says it was inadvertent. If they wouldn't change it, inadvertent. What would inadvertent? He inadvertently wrote that it was suicide. He didn't inadvertently write anything. He purposely wrote it. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I was willing to give this report credibility. I wanted to get these guys on our show. But when you say something like that, juries aren't stupid, okay? They're going to see that. And that's it's just a little bit of an error. It was an inadvertent error. Okay. I'm sorry. By the way, don't you guys go anywhere, because we're going to actually have some show and tell about inadvertent things that are happening. We have chalk today.
Okay, so let's zoom along through this so we can get to the show and tell.
Okay.
This next question has to do
you don't
with
have to zoom.
Officer Lank. Or is he a sergeant? I can't remember what his rank. I don't know the Lank rank.
I'm sorry. I'm still on that. The reason why they said that the police chief had to go back and check the reports is because he inadvertently wrote.
Yeah, that officer inadvertently wrote suicide.
That Sandra Birchmore was a suicide. What kind of nonsense is that?
That's a common mistake. Come on.
It's just a normal mistake. You just inadvertently write suicide versus homicide. That's an inadvertent mistake. No problem.
Yeah, let me see if I can find her question.
These people, I'm sorry. They paid $200,000 for this shit.
They had a lot of community meetings about what company to hire and to approve the money. And so, those concerned citizens took part in all this. They're probably the same ones that are there, on that night.
And you know what? I don't see that word inadvertently wrote that report.
In those 3 pages
in
of the
the 3
206?
pages. The recommendation says the Canton PD report, I'm still on this, I'm sorry, prepared by the detective who wrote the Sandra Birchmore died of a suicide. They didn't say he inadvertently wrote she died of a suicide. They said she died of a suicide. We recommend death investigative reports be reviewed by the Chief of Investigative Division and approved prior to being finalized.
Good idea. Because they might have inadvertent information on them.
Gallagher,
Okay, let's see.
Around 6:05, 6:06 a.m., shortly after receiving the call from Jennifer McCabe, where they had found.
Okay, let me back that up. This has to do with Officer Lank. Let me see if I can get her question in here. I think it's the Officer Lank.
Trish Boyden from Canton. Quick question regarding January 29th, 2022. Do you think Officer Lank should receive disciplinary consequences for answering his cell phone from witness Jen McCabe and going to interview her and other witnesses all at the same time, as opposed to telling her this is a conflict of interest? Someone will be contacting you shortly from the police station.
No, I don't.
Okay, why?
Good follow-up.
Yeah.
My understanding is Sergeant Lank was one of the lead detectives on the 29th. My recollection is Sergeant Good called Sergeant Lank and also Lieutenant Gallagher at around 6:05, 6:06 a.m., shortly after receiving the call from Jennifer McCabe, where they had found Mr. O'Keefe. And he has the ability, the experience to conduct interviews, to respond. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary with him taking the call. The second call that he received when they had cleared the scene, and I talked about this with numerous detectives, including Mike Lank, who I have a lot of respect for. I think he's a good investigator. In a perfect world, the second interview.
In a perfect world.
Come over to the police department and we'll put you on the record and we'll get the rest of the story. Meaning we'll conduct a further witness interview relating to the information that she had on the defendant, Ms. Reed. So hopefully that answers your question.
It didn't, because she didn't go to the police station. They did it at someone's home, and then they did it at her home. So she didn't go to the police station for any interviews.
My understanding is that around 6:40 in the morning, there was a couple interviews. One, Sergeant Lank went into the house and had a discussion with Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matthew McCabe, and I got that directly from a police report. Later on that morning, around 9 a.m., Jen McCabe called Mike Lank while he was at the Canton Police Department and asked him to come to 34 Fairview Road. He responded back over to 34 Fairview Road, where he received more information from the witness, meaning Jen McCabe. I didn't see anything wrong with any of that in a perfect world. The interview at 9 a.m. probably they should have considered bringing him to the Canton Police Department.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, come on, who lives in a perfect world?
Right.
Yeah,
You're
come on.
supposed to be auditing about whether the procedures follow.
Nothing's perfect.
Yeah. Unbelievable. By the way, thank you, Melanie
Melanie
Little's
Little's
Left
Left
in
Swipe.
StreamYard, $3.99 super sticker. Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry. I am still caught up on that little word. I mean, I really want to cut that and play that. And I guess they're not going to come on our show now, because I was going to have Missy invite them, over to come on our show this week to explain this. And I think we should still do, knowing my feeling. And you all know that my husband did the second review of Sandra Birchmore for the civil case that kind of put this whole thing in motion. And the feds agreed, and the feds indicted him for what would be a civil rights. It's not really a murder statute. It's a murder of a witness, because she was a witness. And I'm reading this 3-page. I'm sorry. I'm just still stuck on this. I'm reading this 3 pages about how the Canton PD conducted a second review. They knew Matthew Birchmore was in a relationship. They knew that she was alleged to be the father of the unborn child. He's seen, observed, and leaving the apartment. He's the last one to see her. And this person who does this audit says that the reason why the recommendation is made, because the person who wrote the report, and I think we know who that is, right, said that Sandra Birchmore died of a suicide, but he now says he inadvertently said he died of a suicide. Is that an interview, sir, that you did with the person who wrote the report that you don't name here? Was that an interview that the public doesn't have? Because what I'm suggesting is all of you now should file a FOIA request and get any interviews that they did, any notes that they have, to see where he may have said this was inadvertent that he put down suicide. And it just so happened that after the medical examiner came down and said, she said it was suicide, but he usurped the medical examiner first with this inadvertent report. I find that so outrageous. I find it so unbelievable. I find it so ridiculous that that's their conclusion, that I have to disregard. It's like false in one, false in all, everything that's in the report. And quite frankly, now Hank Brennan is going to want to get this report in, and they're going to be fighting an eliminating motion because on the other way around. All right.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's my rant for that. That's just cut it, put it on the air, send it to them, because they'll know what they're getting into if they want to come on our show. But I really like them to come on our show.
Let's have them come on the show. But I will only do it if Carmen Reese joins them. That's it. That's my requirement.
I'm sorry, Michael. I usurped your section. You worked so hard getting this ready.
That's all right.
And it was just an accident that we ended up with the inadvertent.
Oh, it was inadvertent. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Inadvertent wheel.
This just in. I don't have time to hit the breaking news. I just heard from Mark Randazza. I was asking him about the original temporary restraining order because it had been filed, not for the second case that I'm a plaintiff in, and not for the third case, which is Mr. Delgado, but in the first case with the 4 protesters. That is now on calendar for tomorrow. So.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of news to report tomorrow. By the way, Stephanie Evison, please always correct my pronunciation. I'm not sure. Canada, $27.99. Thank you for this donation. Lonnie was apparently off duty that day. Why did he respond? The officer across the road was off duty and he didn't respond. Really interesting. All this stuff is really interesting. But anyhow, in the meantime, even if you're from Canada, I think you can file a FOIA report asking who was that was speaking? Which one was that was speaking that said inadvertent?
This is
who was that? It was
Brian McKnight.
Brian McKnight, where he got the information from that the person who wrote, the sergeant who wrote the report said it was inadvertent that he filled in that it was a suicide. Inadvertent. Where he got that from, because that's nowhere in their audit, and has not been released. And if you're paying $200,000, you should have the backup. I don't think they can hide behind the fact that there's some kind of privilege here. This is a public audit. And you know what, Michael? Maybe we'll file a FOIA request. All right.
Yeah, we've had so much luck before. We'll get Ashley Merchant on retainer.
We're gonna have to get it right, Ashley Merchant Retainer.
Now look
Wow,
at this. Before I
you
get,
got a first, so that's a first hearing on a TRO on the
It'd be
first
the-
case, which is a
that'll be
little
tomorrow.
different than your case. Your case is a lot, actually, I think a lot different. But
It is. It definitely is because it's journalistic. It's not just right to assemble. Also First Amendment right. Okay, so I thought this was interesting. You give me your read on this guy, and then we'll get a couple more before I turn over to you and your evidence issues.
well, we have a little video that precedes the evidence issue.
Yeah,
on
it's not
Jackson, so don't go away.
it's not very long. It's a little shorty. Let's see if I can find. Where did it go? 242.
I'm sorry. This is really good. This is good. I have to read this while you're fine. Jay and Hull FKR. Okay. And I just it was just passing. It was a comment that was passing. We hope you become a member, Jay. Farwell inadvertently left Sandra Birchmore's apartment, last one to see her alive, and went straight to the hospital and delivered a new child. All right. A new child into the world with his wife. That was all inadvertent. He inadvertently did that. He inadvertently went there, and he inadvertently was the last one to see her. So let's use the word inadvertent in front of everything. Thanks, Jay. I'm sorry. I'm just so much on this. I'm so incensed that
All right then.
I feel
Sorry.
fortunate to live here with a great chief and a great group of officers. So I think you just stated, but again, just to be clear that there was no evidence of tampering or corruption, correct, in regard that you found? With
None that we observed.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Can you say shill? I mean, the guy looks like he's a cop. I mean, looks like he just happens to be out of uniform. But that's all he had to say. Let me just confirm. You found no corruption, nothing inappropriate. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, you needed to come up and say that on the microphone, dude. Okay. Let's see. Let me see where I want to go. Oh, let's talk. Crime scene. Let's talk crime scene.
By the way, you want a little secret, all of you, how you know if you have a police person who is female that comes up there, because you can't really tell from a man. But you know how my nails are like, always done?
No.
If you are like a state trooper, like a New York State trooper, you're not allowed, if you're a female, to wear nail. You're not allowed to have your nails done, nail polish and stuff like that. So you can always kind of pick out a shill.
You'd be out of uniform.
Of a different gender. Just a little hint.
This woman had things. She was very laudatory, but then she had a very interesting question. She's talking about people that won't be happy with anything they hear.
It's very clear that that's really the only solution or the only finding that's going to satisfy them. I do have one question, and it relates to the characterization of crime scene. We've seen a lot in newspapers and the Herald. They were very quick, for an example, the Boston Herald, to jump on the fact that the crime scene, that the Canton Police Department did not handle the crime scene appropriately. So I wanted to know what constitutes a crime scene. I think there was an excerpt in your report that noted that the Canton Police emergency, or the 911 call, was initially characterized in such a way that they did not respond to a hit and run, which is a crime, that they were responding to an unattended death, I think is what it said. And I wanted to understand if there was, let me just read this. I also submitted this in the portal, but now that I'm here, what is the specific language or assumption by the 911 caller that dictates crime scene protocol versus accident scene protocol? And also, what are the different procedures governing each? If the victim has not been declared dead, is it standard procedure to photograph him, or does that typically only occur when death is certain? If the victim is potentially revivable, don't life-saving techniques take precedence over crime scene processing, particularly if the facts initially available do not specifically indicate a crime?
Thank you.
Okay, you get that question? I mean, it's a softball at its very best. She's saying, People have been complaining. Nobody took photographs of the crime scene of John O'Keefe's body on the ground. Yeah, shocking, right?
Right.
But she is making an excuse for them by saying, well, if this was somebody that wasn't dead and they were using life-saving measures, who cares about photos? That's her take. So here's the response.
Thank you.
So you're talking about in the report where it says that the Canton police first responders did not photograph Mr. O'Keefe before he was placed in the rescue, right?
I'm not talking specifically about just what the report has captured. I'm also talking about what some of the media and newspapers have captured in terms of what the report states. I think context is an important thing, and I'm not sure that they have it.
Yeah, they're going to write it the way they want to write it.
Yeah, the truth, whatever.
Was called in as, unresponsive man in the snow at 34 Fairview Road. Initially, Sergeant Good, he kicked it over to Fire Rescue. I listened to the call a couple times. Jen McCabe did a really good job describing the events, back and forth with the Fire Rescue.
Yeah, almost like she already knew what was happening.
I think at one point, she described that they were turning him over because he was face down. You know, it was a must have been very traumatic for her, obviously, and still traumatic to this day. And I think the back and forth was, is he breathing? And I'm not sure. And I think she might have made some other comments. She didn't know, basically, if he was responsive or not.
She said, I think he's passed away. That's what she said.
Right.
I think for the jury, obviously every jury is different. The first jury clearly thought it was weird that when she called 911, it was so matter of fact about things, never really got near the body, because we could tell from ultimate body cam footage or cop car footage. She was super calm. And even though, from what we know, she never really got near the body, she knew he was dead or thought he was dead.
Yeah, and it's a normal crime scene thing. When you found a body on your front lawn, you don't ask to search the house where the body is found.
Yeah, well, they
never got into that either.
That's a whole other story. Yeah.
When you respond to a crime scene, whatever it is, even though you don't know what that crime scene is, we were hired to look at policy and procedure. The policy and procedure is very, very tight.
Very tight.
It tells police officers what to do when they respond. Photograph, sketch the crime scene, notifications to supervisors, all which was done. They didn't have time to make those conduct photographs because there was a lot going on with the initial responder there, Steve Saraf. I think he tried to do the best he could with the few minutes before the fire rescue showed up. So when you're a first responder, you really don't know what you're responding to. Best practices and pursuant to policy, photographs should have been taken, but there are factors where you don't have time. If you're doing CPR,
How about body worn cameras?
And you're the only police officer.
They have them now.
You're not gonna be able to do
Now.
The point was that when they responded, they did not
Listen to this.
necessarily respond to a crime. They responded to a person who needed help, who needed
Yes.
medical assistance. And therefore, taking a picture of the person probably wasn't the correct thing to do, because the first thing that they wanted to do is render aid to that person.
Okay, that's enough of that. Her name should be on the report.
Her name should be on the report, right? And who she knows and come on.
policy.
I mean, this is ridiculous. Anyone who teaches crime scene and crime scene response and what you're supposed to do.
Could you give me some insight onto, because you made a comment that the cameras were replaced.
Now we're in the Sally Port.
Not replaced at a
Okay,
certain
this is the
time.
question we had
I'd just
before
like
from
some
Eliza.
clarity on what you were told by the IT director, Louis Jutras, on when the cameras were or were not replaced, what cameras inside the Sally Port were being recording inverted, and if in fact, I understand that you guys are not here to conduct an investigation, but when he told you that those Sally Port cameras inside were motion activated, Did you ever think of stepping outside the door and stepping back inside the garage and seeing if your movement was actually captured and it was inverted?
No to that question. I'll answer your other question. When we sat down with,
Specific with the dates on when IT Director Louis Jutras told you that the cameras were not to be touched by an authority, whether it was the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, whether it was
we
Helena
didn't, we didn't
Rafferty.
ask him those types of questions. We asked him, how many cameras are there in and around the Canton Police Department? He noted there was 28, most of which are analog. I think there's 2 IP cameras. We asked him regarding the mirrored camera. There's 1 mirrored camera inside the Sallyport number 3. There's also a couple other in the town. They didn't, the Canton Police Department didn't go up there and hit mirrored 20 years ago when they installed the camera. We know that because we had a discussion about that, because there's other cameras in town that were installed by whoever installed them 20 years ago. And I'll answer your question again. No, when we met with him, we didn't walk downstairs from the conference room, walk into the Sallyport to see if the camera was working. That wasn't in our scope of work. Further, we did not look at any videos from Karen Reed's vehicle when it was there from January 29th to February 2nd. Wasn't in the scope of work. What was on the camera?
It was not in the scope of work. So logic, you're not allowed to follow any sort of logic. So for the 3 days the car was in the Sallyport, the subject to which all of these videos that have been, backwards and materializing out of thin air, we didn't. It wasn't in the scope of work.
Yeah,
So
Carlo, Ohio, thank you for gifting one Justice Serve TV membership.
Okay.
Appreciate that a lot. It wasn't in the scope of work. So anyhow,
of
so now, by the way, let me just, because I still can't believe what he said about the inadvertent. I guess when the police chief in Stoughton decided that the internal affairs investigation there found 3 officers had inappropriate relationships with young women, including the one who killed herself, the Explorer, when she was an Explorer, right? She's 13, or was she 13 when she was started with them?
15 officially, but yeah.
But 13 when she's in the Explorers. That they're unfit to serve. I guess we didn't bother dealing with that either, because that, we're only, our scope of work
wasn't in the scope of work.
It was Canton. And in fact, on Stoughton, is everything in the billboards are telling you they're wrong, wasn't in the scope of work. Okay.
80 pages of scope of work.
Come on, please. We'd like you to come on. Really, I will be calm. I'm very good. You've seen me in court. I can be very calm when I need to be, Okay,
let's finish this little bit with our star of the show, and everybody knows Peter. Everybody knows this guy. And
before you do, Stephanie Evason, as we know, again, thank you for your donation, $6.99 Canada. It wasn't in the scope of work to find out anything about the Sallyport cameras, but it was in the scope of work to determine that there was no cover-up. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that was the scope of work. No. How they got there didn't seem to matter, but the ultimate
great
conclusion. Point. Okay, here we go.
In the last 22 years I spent as a sergeant, I believe I've met Brian and Matt up here, and also the other gentleman who was a state trooper at the library when they gave their proposal. We can agree, gentlemen, that we're cops, right? We know this business inside and out, 30 years. I guess I want to ask you a simple question. If it was your family member laying in the snow on that morning, and sometime after 6:06 a.m., the process of the investigation went ongoing and continued. There were no pictures taken. There was possible exigent circumstances where a protective sweep should have been done. Everybody on that department knows that Brian Albert was in a fugitive unit and a gang unit. There could have been multiple decedents or victims around the property or in the house. Nothing took place to assure that that victim on the ground was the only victim. And what I'd like to suggest is the crime scene became twofold, sir. It went from the ground into the ambulance. Had a police officer, which I had to dispatch many times on crime scenes I was on, gone in that ambulance and witnessed clothing being cut and the marks on the right arm, it would have been pretty apparent to a Cub Scout that there was a lot going on there, and perhaps maybe a taillight didn't do that. Maybe it was some sort of another physical attack. Would you have been happy if it was your family member and satisfied with that investigation? Or could that investigation concluded it was not Alexa's taillight and Karen Reed, is factually innocent?
Okay, so the question got a little buried there. It gave them an out when you hear their answer. I mean, he could have very succinctly said, as he did in the start, would you, if it were one of your family members, would you have been happy with the investigation in this case? Leave that matzo ball hanging out there. But he watered it down by, taking a jab at their investigation and the fact that he believes Karen Reed is innocent. So here's the answer.
I'm going to take that as more of a statement versus a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear Carmen trying to step in there and save his ass?
Right.
I mean, you're the moderator. Jeez.
Right.
So I'm not going to answer because that's not a question. You just got on your soapbox.
Sound like a question to me.
Statement. You assumed a lot of things that didn't happen. I don't know.
Okay, folks, we can't hear the answer if you're drowning out the speaker. Thank you.
Come on.
That's not a question, so I'm not going to answer it, especially when you're talking about an ongoing investigation.
Whoa, time out.
Time out. Right, exactly. You and I the same thing. Time out. I'm not going to, that's always what they say. I'm not going to answer it if you're talking about an ongoing investigation. That's why the medical examiner wouldn't come on our show with Sandra Bursmore. Not going to come on because it's an ongoing investigation. That's when you already said that it was suicide. I mean, and now they're not going to answer this on the Canton audit?
We're into the second trial. It's an ongoing investigation
Second
still.
trial, you get something for murder, but it's an ongoing investigation.
Drowning out the speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not a question, so I'm not going to answer it, especially when you're talking about an ongoing investigation.
Maybe they'll get it done by the time there's a third trial. I don't know.
I was talking these people up. I said, look, they're honest. They do audits for the Department of Justice. This is a joke.
Oh, so
this is a joke. This is really a joke.
It really,
I mean,
it's really horrible. I hope you appreciate it. I labored through 3 hours and 15 minutes of that BS.
You really did. You were amazing.
To get to some nuggets
I want
there.
to tell you, Michael Bryant. I mean, I know he didn't take one for the team last week and get arrested. Okay, all right, but he went.
There's
there
always hope for this week.
Just so you know, before we do some little show and tell, because we got some other important area to go in terms of Alan Jackson's cross-examination in the first trial and something that we picked up on. All right. Michael Bryant has been there 5 times. He's going 6 times. He's going Thursday and Friday this week. If it wasn't for his 8 minutes of videotape, we wouldn't have these lawsuits. We wouldn't have known what's going on. He makes all these cuts and clips for the show, along with the help of our moderators who have to deal with me. And you know how I get. You see how I get when I get really pissed off at something. But hopefully they'll be here tomorrow, because tomorrow will be our 10th anniversary show. And Thursday, when Mark Randazzo will be here pending their resignation. And Wednesday, you're going to have another special show. But Michael Bryant really deserves some real accolades, because he goes through all these videos and he sits there, and now he's going to go, because he's embarrassed that I'm complimenting him.
Yes,
he's a real reporter. He's a real journalist. And quite frankly, for the person who suggests that he's a so-called journalist, really, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
and I'm actually being very ladylike right now, because
it makes me laugh.
Remember, people, I'm the person who sits in murder cases next to the person who's accused of shooting people and killing them, sometimes in the head. All right. All right. I have a little toughness in me. I show you kindness most of the time, and I show Michael kindness most of the time. He is great. Okay. But I'm also not going to take attacks on him that are not made in good faith. Anyhow, that's
we need to. I got a note from Missy about reminding folks. Got the 10K celebration tomorrow. Tom and Kristen Anderson. Tom, my co-plaintiff,
right?
And Kristen Anderson will be here on Wednesday, because you're going to be gone. And then Mark Randazza is going to be here on Thursday. So let's do your thing real quick.
Okay, so let's look at some.
I got that video.
Yeah, we have a video. We have a video of Alan Jackson, and this is a big issue. This is a cross-examination, and it's going to have to do with crime scene collection. And I had to spend some of the Justice Served TV budget, because we're going to have a little bit.
That is going to set us back.
and tell here, okay? A little bit of show and tell, and you're gonna know what's coming. Okay, let's
Okay,
see
let's
Alan
roll
Jackson.
this. Stand by. Here we go.
So yesterday when you opened these two bags, this one, 437, has the gray sweatshirt in it. 438 has the orange t-shirt in it now, correct?
That's what was in the bag, yes.
All right. However, the bag indicates at one point, this bag, 438, the physical bag I'm holding in my left hand, had both the sweatshirt and the t-shirt together, correct?
That's what the description is. I do not know if that was in case or in fact the case.
All right. With that, let me show you. So this involves chain of custody. What a good chain of custody report looks like. This is just a screenshot of one chain of custody report. Do you have it there?
I do have that. I'm
Okay.
just I'm cleaning off one thing and getting back to the other. Stand by here.
Okay.
Okay. See if I can manipulate that so it's not
this is going into the crime lab in the Boston PD, and you see it's computerized and it's documented. The case name, the offense name, what the category is. If somebody is put something in the in the lab, where it goes. If somebody takes it out, if you go to if you scroll up just a little bit to number ID 2, you'll be able to see where something is.
Thank you. Okay, there you go.
Go down below, right on the bottom. It says date. Can you go up a little more? Header is taking it off up a little more.
Hold on, let me shrink it, or it won't fit.
Or
there
shrink it roughly. You'll be able to see where somebody. Okay, we have to shrink it even more. Then we're going to have to get rid of our bottom batter. Okay, because it shows you actually where you can kind of see it in the top there in the first one, where somebody is taken something out of the unit. They log it out, then they log it back in. They may take it out at 7 at 7 on 7/16 at 6:24 a.m. and then log it. It goes out at 7:17 and then it goes back in at 7:17 at a different 14 minutes later. It all is logged in and out when things are happening and where it is and how it's kept. All right. I just want to show you
chain of custody. Strange.
It's called chain of custody, a good chain of custody. And I have a lot of these from Hernandez because there was a lot of different points. So we decided when we were looking at that, we went out and we have 2 brown bags. Okay. We have 437 and 438. Now, Alan Jackson was making the point that the gray sweatshirt was in bag 437. I don't know if you all can see that. Bag 437.
Okay, let me let you fill the screen here. I'll get rid of this.
Okay.
There we go. There we
go. 437. And that the orange t-shirt was in 438, but it was also at one point with the gray sweatshirt. And you see that this is not crime scene tape, but the bags are, as he was holding them, they'd been opened up. And usually when you open a bag and then you write on there whatever you're doing. I have to get a pen that actually you can see. You may say your initials, LKB, had this out on 4/7 at 7:27, right? And then I'll put it back in, on that red tape that's here, because this is the yellow crime scene tape that tells you. But every time there's another piece of tape that goes on when things are open. So the point he's making is that in bag 438, it had both the orange sweatshirt, the orange t-shirt, here we are, okay, and gray sweatshirt, okay, gray, here we are. And the reason why this is important, because they ended up in separate bags, is because the red taillight, you all see that?
Yep.
Red taillight. Now I'm kind of off the screen a little bit.
There you go.
There you go. Red pieces.
Those are almost the same size pieces.
Almost the same size of the things. Somehow, along with the glass, pieces of the glass. Can you see that? Pieces of the glass.
I see that.
Let's throw a little more taillight in there, somehow everything works together. So when you say that the gray sweatshirt then ended up, and remember it was wet and all, in this bag, what you're doing is you pulled some of the stuff that's in here, and it's gone into this bag. It's gone into so that you don't have a chain of custody for either of these. And what happens if you mix the red taillight and the glass pieces with both of these items, they're going to, and they were kind of wet. Remember, they were on the floor at John O'Keefe's body. They were filled with blood. They were filled with snow. They were wet. they end up in the same. They end up with his clothes. So you can't say that there's a
They're
good
cross
chain.
contaminated.
They're cross contaminated, right?
Is
Even in
Trooper
our
Proctor
bag.
is Trooper Proctor in either of those bags? Is he in there?
Yeah. No, and it's, you asked me when I was taking pictures of doing this afternoon, are his feet in the pictures? No, they were my feet, okay?
Oh, okay.
But the point is, you've got bag 437, 438. Now we're gonna, and now though, when they get to court, you have the orange T-shirt in 438, and you have the gray sweatshirt in 437, and in 438. Well, now all of a sudden, after a former Trooper Proctor has been to the hospital collecting the clothes, supposedly that had these shards of glass and the shards of red in them, they end up in the bag. Well, guess what? You've got everything was in one bag. And the question then becomes when, since there's no chain of custody, since there's two bags, and since whatever was on the bags is not what was in the bags when they got to court. I'm done.
Well done. And I do believe that a lot of folks who lean on that heavily, what about the pieces of daylight that were found in his sweater or sweatshirt? Well, yeah, explain that away, since they were commingling in the same bag.
In the same bag. And then
that doesn't even take into account the possibility, and that's all I'm saying it is, that it was intentionally blended together.
And
that's accidental.
And that's why you have, when you talk about DNA, cross-contamination. Well, this person's DNA. Well, if you went and touched John O'Keefe, right, and then you went and you're at the hospital, and then you touched the back of the housing of the SUV of Karen Reed that's in the Sally Port, your DNA could be on you, and therefore it ends up on the back. Do you have your car?
Oh, yes.
You have your car? You have your car? It ends up on the...
Yeah,
it ends up,
right about
especially,
there. Yeah,
especially if that's one of the only places you swabbed and you didn't swab the whole car.
Yeah.
In Hernandez, they didn't swab even in the inside of the car. So you can't, that cross-contamination is real, everyone. And this is sloppy procedures, because this allowed, it just suggests that something funny was being done.
That's almost as important as, the defense doesn't have to prove a damn thing. But every one of these weird little either mistakes, negligence, or intentional act, they just make you wonder what's real, what really happened, what is the mechanism that led to the death that night. And I just don't know. I don't know.
Right.
After all this time, I don't know.
And here's the problem the defense has. The defense can't normally... by the way, thank you, Mary, new member. Thank you from YouTube member.
Thank you, Mary.
for
Welcome.
joining. Thank you. Welcome. The defense has, because normally, what's the remedy? The remedy would be normally that all this stuff is out. It doesn't come into evidence. But the defense needs it all to come into evidence to show that she's not guilty, or try to show that she's not guilty by bringing the state or forcing the state to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, showing all these things that are, shall we say, weird,
questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with the defense proving their case. It has everything to do with the prosecution having so many holes in their case, they don't get beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
It's a mess. Okay. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're a graduate of MJB Prop School. Very good. Good job.
Maybe we should put some crime scene tape on these and give these away to somebody, because
I think you're going to be doing some bedazzling or something.
Well, I kind of wear bedazzle, but I don't make bedazzle. Oh gosh, look! I pull all this out. And out comes all this stuff on my lap. Okay.
Did you just happen to have the right colored clothing in your?
Yeah,
your
this
wardrobe?
is actually mine. This is
Okay.
mine.
Who are you wearing?
I'm actually wearing something from a Broadway show, but it's also not a Broadway show. You all know what. Hold on.
Okay, it looks like a jersey of some sort.
It is a jersey. It is a jersey. Okay.
I don't know what show is that. What show? Oh, FUBU. Yeah.
It's actually Lisa Small. By the way, thank you also for being a new member. Welcome to being a new member. And then the other one was just a gray sweatshirt. Usually I'm wearing my Jets colors, but they had nothing to do with the crime scene. So.
Well, it's a crime every time they play. Hey!
Oh, bingo!
Okay, so I think I think it's time for our person of the week. What do you think? Should we do
Yes,
that?
absolutely. Our person
Let's
of the
do
week.
that. Okay.
Red in flames, they charge with might. Eyes like fire, hearts alight. Drums of war beat through the night. Victory, oh what a sight. Oh brave souls in the storm. Raise your swords, no more to mourn. Giant hearts in battles born. Legends forged and never.
When you get on that sidewalk across the street, that is a traditional public forum. That is where Americans gather to protest.
There you go. Not a big surprise. I guess I should have maybe recused myself from the vote, but Mark
Okay,
Randazza.
so we may have a little conflict of interest here, but
Yes,
we
there was.
do believe that
There's
he
no
is-
conflict. There's no conflict.
I
I've
mean,
had
come
it
on.
looked at by an audit committee.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
fine.
actually true. We all of our mods and everyone has knows and input because he's taken these cases. Yes, and as someone says, we are the First Amendment channel, and yeah, we even gave voice to the person. I didn't like what they said, but it's not that I didn't like what he said. I think that he was being accusatory because he was being a troll. Okay, that's what I think. If you can say, you can believe, and we've said it on this case, we believe that Karen Read could be convicted on certain theories if the prosecution did them right. We believe that could happen.
Yep.
Whether or not it should
definitely
happen is a
could
different
happen.
story. But
Yep.
could it happen? It could happen. And people sometimes come after us for that. But we're going to tell you what we think all of the time. But Mark Randazzo, he absolutely deserves
He's killing it. He's killing it. He's in. We wanted to try and get him on tonight because we made him our person of the week. But he's in Texas, a new case that he's taking on. We are going to have him on Thursday, though. That's I penciled that in. This guy's out there and about so much. I don't want to ink it in just yet, but I penciled it in. And he did text me about the filing for tomorrow. The temporary restraining order is actually going to be heard tomorrow on case number 1 with the 4 protesters. So
right. And we don't know when your TRO is going to be heard, but
no, because I just did the declaration today.
Yeah,
so
maybe it'll be Thursday when you're up there.
That would be good.
Maybe, or you're in jail and your partner has your.
Maybe I can be sworn in.
Yeah,
I can be sworn in.
But now tomorrow we are going to be continuing to cover Karen Read, but we are going to have our 10,000 show episode. You're going to be shocked, I hear, at a lot of things that our moderators and our producers have planned, and a lot of the guests that are going to be on. Apparently, we're going to be shocked, and we may even be blushing a little bit, but we're going to still cover our show. And if there's breaking news, we're not shy, we're not bashful. I was just going for that. And then Wednesday, I won't be here. I will actually first be having a soiree meeting Cheryl McCollum, who's somebody that you all know. She's a crime scene investigator extraordinaire. I was on her on her podcast recently. You can get that. It's an audio podcast. She said we killed it, that people were loving it. And I want to get her on our show, but I'd also like to maybe do a little with my very sad little microphone that I have. Maybe
you're gonna do an interview with your baby mic?
Maybe I could use my.
I think that's the amateur model. You have to work your way up to the pro model's a little bigger than that.
That's and then I actually have a night off with a friend. We're actually going to see a play that we saw in London that a friend of mine, the lawyer, is the lawyer for the production of this play. So Wednesday night, I'm actually taking a night off.
Very nice.
Sort of, half a night off. But you're in great hands with Tom, and you're going to have a great show.
And Kristen, we'll
right,
cover
absolutely.
news of the day, and then we'll talk a little bit about the lawsuits and where they're going and what the latest is.
Yeah, and Kristen, saw.
She has a story that's crazy. Her
incredible,
story.
And she emailed us about it, and that we put people on the show when they email us,
and there's a common theme through all of these, and it's Hardman. Right,
that's
exactly. The name,
yeah,
and you'll be shocked at what this guy did.
And I'll have to watch it on replay. I'll have part of the replay team. And then Thursday we have Mark Randazzo on, and then Friday we're probably going to be streaming on the air pretty much all the time, the jury selection and all on Friday morning, and then you're going to be there all day, and then. We hope to also have something else going on. We're taping a few shows that we also want to have premieres on, but we'll let you know what that is. But Friday will probably be on the air most of the day.
And Thursday at some point, I'll be
On
on
off.
at some point. I'm not sure when, but certainly when we have Mark on that night, I'll be up in Canton. You'll
Right.
be in the city, and we'll work that out.
We'll work it out.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody again making the 10K over the weekend. I was not sure it was going to happen when we started going backwards on
Yeah, but before
Saturday
you go,
night.
yeah,
Yes, but
funny.
what did I forget?
I said actually to you, do you want to wait to midnight? Maybe the wishing hour is midnight, but then I fell asleep. What did you forget? You're supposed to say, please like.
No,
Hit
that's
that
your
like
job.
button.
That's
Oh, that's
your
my
thing.
job.
That's
Okay,
your
I'm
job.
sorry. All right. You all been watching this show. We're here for you. We're trying to do the best we can to cover. If you have any suggestions, Missy and Diz and everybody and Oasis Cat who help us, just amazing people. They help you, and we're here for you. And the show wouldn't be anything without you. But for us to get in the algorithm to stay with you, you have to hit that like button. So I'm begging you, hit the like button. Begging you, pretty please. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the share button. And hit the notify all. And if you do it from a phone, apparently from an iOS or from a phone, you will get notification. I
Oh,
can't tell you about
okay.
a computer.
Good to know. All
So
right.
before you go, we're just going to give it on three. Everyone just hit the like button. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Hit the like button.
Okay. Hey, to making it count, she said music is arguably one of the best parts of the show. Wait a minute, that was AI. So what is?
Yeah, we're
to
gonna actually
making
have
it
a
count?
poll. Are we gonna have a poll?
Okay.
We're gonna have a poll. Michael's supposed to put it up about whether should change our theme song from the reggae music, or whether we should go to the AI that we developed for our person of the week. I won't tell you what my vote is, but the two of us have two different votes.
Mine is jaded because I would need to edit the new open, and so that is not high on my list at the moment. But I love that song. It's so powerful. It's so right on with the
Warriors.
the fight for the justice, and
Warriors,
you can't be shy. And
Yeah.
no, I love all that. When I found it, I'm like, oh my god, how does AI do this stuff?
Yeah, so
Unbelievable.
maybe what we'll do is we'll put together a poll that should stay up for more than a day. Can we put a
Yeah.
poll say more than
I
a
can
day?
do that. I'll put that on our YouTube poll page.
Yeah, maybe for tomorrow, maybe for our 10,000 show, and then we can ask everybody. Okay, but hopefully we're pretty good parts of the show too.
Yeah,
So now that I read about this,
that would be good. All right then. Well, until then, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. Together we are Justice Served TV. Hit that like button before we go, and see you tomorrow.